Welcome to the first National Housing Party United Kingdom meeting. I'm McGinnis, some of you might know me, and just going to tell you a little history of what happened with us getting this party registered. Obviously it's me and John Lawrence who did the work getting it registered, and so the reason it happened was sometime last year, as we've already spoken about the BNP coming to the end of its line. We lost a court case. John had already started working with us with the Exit the UN Refugee Convention campaign, and John would have joined the BNP as well if we would have got the party back from the two crooks who took it over. And it come to the stage of the court case in the High Court. We basically lost the court case, and so there was two other pretty big organisations, I won't mention their names, who kept saying that they can't get registered for whatever reason, and it was going on for quite a long time. And I decided to try and get a party registered myself, just to see how difficult it was to put a test out, so to speak. And I basically went to the Electoral Commission, looked at how I had to do it, and initially we wanted to call. Well, before that, I asked John if he would be willing to be leader of the party, because I feel that John's got some good qualities. He's not worried about his identity being revealed. Leadership qualities, and I felt he was around me at that time. He was probably the best person to be a leader of a party. So I approached John. John just said yes straight away, and so initially we wanted to call it the National Party United Kingdom, because I sort of, as time went on getting the party registered, I decided that I want to have national in the name, and I want to have United Kingdom in the name. The reason I wanted United Kingdom in the name is because I wanted to include Northern Ireland, and I personally think that it's better for Northern Ireland to get involved with a party like UKIP was. So basically, it was going to be called National Party United Kingdom, but they said we can't use that name because it was too similar to UKIP, and then we tried to change it around to something similar, and they basically said that we can't use that name because it's too similar to UKIP. So then I decided to put the word housing into the name, because when I was campaigning for BNP for years, I'd always used that as a vehicle to persuade people to vote just on the housing issue alone, because there's what 1.2 million people waiting for council housing in this country. So that's how the name came about, National Housing Party United Kingdom. And basically, when I approached John, I already knew what his views were, and I said to John, we're going to try and get this party started, and there's going to be two unnegotiable policies which are always going to be there, and those two policies are a complete halt to permanent settlement immigration, which means stop giving out passports to people who are not British, and to stop accepting refugees for permanent settlement. In other words, exit the United Nations Refugee Convention, which John had already been campaigning with us, with London BNP down at Dover, and so John just agreed to that, yeah. And so those are the two cornerstones. What we are hoping will draw other people in, because any patriot or nationalist can't disagree with those two things, because we just do not need any more people settling permanently in this country. And so those are the two main things. And But we've been discussing other policies as well, which are probably going to be introduced, and a big one that we're quite passionate about is political correctness. John's very passionate about this one, and we want to create a society without these politically correct words, and the 7 deadly sins, you could call it that, would be racism, anti-Semitism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, misogynism, Islamophobia. Thank you. And for every one of those politically correct thought crimes, that's what they are, they can be exchanged for, like, I use the term anti-white. If for example, like this councillor who me and John are going to go and report at the police station after this meeting, Councillor Sabrina Francis, the ex-mayor of Camden, she basically is telling people to buy from black-only businesses. That is an anti-white agenda, in my opinion. I wouldn't use the term racism, because if we're using those terms as well, you're basically condoning what destruction that has done to our country. That word racism and anti-Semitism, all of those words I mentioned, has basically near enough destroyed our society. Everyone's walking on eggshells, and we want to create a society without those words. So, like I said, you can exchange those words for racism, anti-white or anti-black. Sexist, anti-woman or anti-men. And is this why they brought out misogynism? Because is that only directed at women? So that can be, you could exchange that anti-women. Don't need to use that word. And homophobia, anti-gay, transphobia. Transphobia, it shouldn't even be used, that word, because Calvin Robinson on GB News said it's impossible to transition. You cannot transition from a man to a woman. So he says it's either a woman pretending to be a man or a man pretending to be a woman. So that one's out of the equation. So the last one is, the sneaky one, is anti-Semitism. Now what they've done with that one, like I said, I use the term anti-white quite a lot. It's an anti-white agenda. They're picking people for employment, deliberately saying that white people can't apply for certain jobs. That's an anti-white agenda. Anti-Semitism, fair enough. There is something as Semitic people, but the majority of Semites are not Jewish, and they're mostly Arabs, Ethiopian, Eritrean. The majority of Israel is not Semitic. If anything, the Jews moving from Russia and Eastern Europe into Israel, they're taking land from Semites who are Arabs. So, by definition, that would be anti-Semitism. But so that's another word that just shouldn't be used. It's just ridiculous. So that's not really a policy, that one. It's just that I feel quite strongly that we should not be using those 7 words, the isms and the phobias. You could, because basically the word racism is a belief. So you're accusing someone of a belief. Like if you say anti, it's an action. It's not, you know what I mean? It's something what they've sort of like, it's an act rather than a belief. And it's easier to understand, and this is why the isms and the phobias have destabilised our society. Another policy we're going to introduce would be to ban dual nationality. Now, some people in here might know my dad is American. He's passed away now, God rest his soul. His heritage was Scottish, Irish, English. So my last name actually originates in Scotland. So he was like English, Irish, Scottish descent, and when I was young, he said to me, "Oh, you must get an American passport, this, that, and the other." So I just went along with it. But as I've got older, I've decided I'm not going to renew it because I don't believe that people should have dual nationality. I think that I should choose. If I want to be American, I should go and live in America and have an American passport. But I'm not. I was born here. I'm English, British, and Northwest European. So, yeah. So that would be one of our policies to like. I know somebody from Malaysia. He's a British citizen, Malaysian. He's actually Chinese, but he was born in Malaysia. But they won't even let him. He's got a British passport, but they won't even let him have a Malaysian passport as well. They won't allow dual nationality. And there's a lot of countries like that. And as I said earlier, we are a unionist party. We don't want to break up the union. As I did in the BNP, we always campaigned for an English Parliament. St George's Day should be a bank holiday. The English are the most persecuted group on this island. There's no doubt about that, and that needs to be addressed. So we want, we want equality. We want equality for white people, because white people are the only people who can be legally discriminated against, and also English as well. English people. I mean, I would say the English elite have destroyed our country, and they're traitors. They've betrayed us, the English. They've betrayed us, the British people. And these English elite, Yvette Cooper, John Major, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Harriet Harman, David Blanket, David Cameron, Jess Phillips, Keir Starmer, Theresa May, Margaret Thatcher, Jeremy Corbyn, Ed Balls, William Hague, all traitors to the English. So, yeah, like I said, people don't seem to realise the BNP were campaigning for bank holiday for St George's Day. Either we should have an English Parliament or go back to the way it was before, because the way it is now is completely unfair, and it's basically another thing what's destabilised our country, maybe deliberately done. Also, sex education in schools. We will campaign to stop all this sex education in schools. The only people who should be teaching their children about sex education is the parents. Certainly not by the state. And I think it's dawning on people now how bad the welfare state is, because the education system is more or less the welfare state. And we've allowed the government, whatever establishment's in charge, they're in control of the schools, and they're just, not only have they brainwashed the kids with the sex education, they've also brainwashed them with far left ideology, to hate themselves, to hate the British, to hate all the history about Britain, and it's evil what they're doing. And this is because we've allowed the establishment to take control of the education system, welfare state. We would campaign to outlaw torture, slaughter, kosher and halal. But as we were speaking about earlier, I strongly believe there's an electoral route, 100%. Local election, that's what it's been for me all along, from 2012 till now, just non-stop local elections. And basically, we got the party started. I decided I wasn't going to stand in the election, but I decided I would, because I felt I can't really tell other people to stand when I haven't done it myself. I've been involved with a lot of elections, canvassing for people, trying to get them elected. So I stood not far from here, and I was quietly amazed that I got 214 votes. I only campaigned for 1 month. John got 174 votes, and we got the party registered, and it was all hectic, and we managed to stand in 2 elections, and I'm so glad I stood. And I literally put my name and address on 5,000 leaflets and put it through 5,000 letterboxes, right? And I just thought, what am I doing? But I just thought I'm going to face the fear and see what happens. Not one person come round my house and knocked on my door. Not one. Not one person has stopped me in the street. And when I was campaigning, I was buzzing on doors, but I couldn't get in. And they were like, I said, oh hello, it's Pat McGinnis. Just wondering if you got my leaflet. I'm voting for you! Shouting down the thing at me. This is how desperate people are to vote for someone. And they were saying that, like, when I've done my leaflet, I've got my leaflets here, and I've got some of John's as well. So come and have a look after at the leaflets. I'm just going to leave them there. And yeah, so I was knocking on doors, and they're saying, we've never had a leaflet like this. When I done the leaflet, I thought this is a bit hard line, and it was a bit hard line, but it's all the truth. And
should this be being recorded, by the way?
It is.
So they said, we've never had a leaflet like this before, this is just amazing. And I thought it was too long, you thought it was too long, and big success. And but like I say, it costs quite a lot of money to do. So yeah, and another thing, you know, everyone's concerned about the indigenous population becoming a minority, which we all are. This is why everyone in this room is here today. The country's losing its identity, but we might not be able to prevent it, right? And if we cannot prevent it, right, what are we going to do? Just let Lib Lad Con carry on winning elections and controlling the education system and everything else? Of course we're not. We're still going to have up to 60 million indigenous British people here. And there's ethnic minorities as well who don't want to be ruled by them because they don't want a sex education in schools. They don't want all this far left ideology brainwashed into their kids. So we might become a minority, but I believe we can stop it, because in David Coleman's report, he said if immigration levels are not stopped the way they are now, the indigenous population of the UK will become a minority by 2066. He didn't mention anything about repatriation. It's just immigration level, if they carry on the way they are. So I think we've got a very good chance of getting somewhere. In the next 2 years, I believe something is going to open up. Marine Le Pen has just won 89 seats in France. She has single-handedly destroyed the Labour Party and the Tory Party in France, equivalent to what is here. Can you imagine that? 89 BNP members of Parliament. I mean, and the reason we're so far behind is because of Brexit. Everyone was concentrating on Brexit, and we couldn't get a party going like, well, they managed to stop the BNP basically, that's what happened. So in the next 2 years, I think there's going to be a massive action. It might not be our party. I'll be honest with you, I don't care who wins, as long as permanent settlement immigration is stopped. If it's the Brit Dems, if it's us, if it's another party coming through or whatever. Obviously, I want my party, our party, to do well. And I do believe we're going to start getting people elected. I'm helping John regularly. I'm going up to Oldham to canvass with John. Been up there once already. Going up there in a few weeks' time. And, you know, we've got a good chance of John getting elected. That's another reason I picked John, because I knew that he has got a good chance of being elected, and you need success, you need a stepping stone. So we've got a new guy, Brian Parsonage from Blackpool, very capable, organiser material, and he is going to be standing in Blackpool for us. Got another person in the room might be interested. And like Ken was saying, Ken Johnson was saying, we're going to help each other. If the British Democrats call me up and say, look, we need some help canvassing, I will go and help them if I'm not doing nothing. Because, you know, as I said, I don't care who wins as long as we win. So, another big policy we're going to have for our party, which is directly related to housing. Housing prices are through the roof. There's millions of people can't get on the housing ladder because they can't even afford the deposit to get a mortgage. So we're going to campaign for a policy to ban foreign ownership of property, land and businesses. Why do foreigners have to own a business in this country and not even live here? Like, it's just baffling. Property, multi-billionaire, Chinese, Russian, American, Hong Kongers, whatever, they're buying up property here and they're not even living in it. So what our suggestion would be is you would set a date and say, look, say just, we're not going to get in power, let's get that right. John thinks we are.
King Prime Minister, what are you on about? Yeah, but I'm making up this rung of the ladder, you know what I mean? That's not
right, we're going to be a pressure group, right? So let's just say whoever got into power with that policy, you'd set a date in 2 years, say, right, all foreign ownership needs to sell their properties before that date, and if you don't sell your property before that date, the government will take that property from you and give you the money what you paid for it, unless the price, what you paid, has gone below what the going rate is at the time. And the same goes for our football clubs. Our football, I don't watch football anymore. I used to be a passionate football fan. I used to go all over Europe watching my team. I won't say what team it is, right? Oh, but I don't watch it anymore. Like, all the owners are like from Saudi Arabia. It's been taken over by far left politics. It's been basically sold off to the rest of the world, and so our housing market has basically got to be nationalised. You go to somewhere like Thailand, you cannot buy a property if you're a foreigner. It's quite a normal thing, and I think India has similar policies. They're nationalist governments, and they don't want a load of foreigners buying their country up, and that's right. Thailand should be for Thailand people. Their housing should be at reasonable prices so their citizens can buy housing. In this country, you need like £70,000 deposit, and people are living at their parents and they can't get on the ladder. So I personally think that's the only way to bring the prices down, is to do something like that and take it off the globalist market. So basically, the other housing crisis is the social housing crisis. There's 1.2 million plus waiting for social housing, and at the same time, obviously that's why we want to stop immigration, permanent settlement immigration, and we don't want any more refugees coming into the country, and we're giving council flats in front of the people here already. We've helped enough refugees. We have helped millions of refugees, and they've been given council flats and everything, and they just keep coming. It needs to be stopped. And obviously our policy is to exit the United Nations Refugee Convention, exit the European Court of Human Rights, and also exit the UN Human Rights Convention. Because if we leave the European Court of Human Rights, they're just going to use the other one, the UN one, to stop the deportations, or what you want to call it. So apart from that, there's still 2 million illegal immigrants in the country, estimated, right? And I don't know if people have noticed that Boris Johnson, on a number of occasions, has said that we should give them amnesty, right? If you look into this, you think to yourself, why does he say that, right? And the conclusion I've come to is these 2 million illegal immigrants, they cannot be deported. There's too many of them. They won't give their real identity, and if they haven't got an identity, no country's going to take them. And a Liberal government like we have now, whether it's Labour or Conservative, they will not do what we're going to suggest, is they need to be put in prison until they agree to leave. And because there's so many, you're talking 2 million people, what one of our suggestions would be, we've got 1 million people waiting for council flats, we need to build thousands of detention centres for these 2 million illegal immigrants to leave the country, because they're not just, you can't deport someone if they refuse to give their identity. They've got to be contained until they leave. Once they are contained, they will be gone within a couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure of that. So one of our suggestions is we build thousands of detention centres, what can later, once they've gone, be turned into housing for our own people. The over 1 million estimated waiting for social housing. So what we would do is you'd set a date, and the punishment for an illegal immigrant should be 3 years in prison. Deportation is not a deterrent. Recently we had an Afghan who was deported 3 times and came back, and he went on, the last thing he got arrested for, he went on a hammer attack in Regent Street, and he went up chatting up women, and if they refused him, he'd start attacking them in the head with a hammer, right? He got about 18 years or something. And he was deported 3 times, so deportation is not a deterrent, they just keep coming back. So the only way to address it is we need to put a message out that they're going to be given 3 years prison, right? And because there's 2 million of them, we would set a date and we would say you can have an amnesty. Not an amnesty to become a UK citizen, an amnesty of the 3-year sentence for being an illegal immigrant. We'll set a date. They go to the port, they have to give their fingerprints, DNA and photograph before they leave to get the amnesty, and if they haven't committed a serious crime, they're free to go and they're barred for life. If they get caught coming in again, they're going to get a 3-year sentence. So you set a date and a lot of these people would just leave. These are just ideas at the moment, but everyone is concerned about illegal immigration and all that, and at the moment, as we've been campaigning about, they cannot be treated as criminals at Dover. Because they claim asylum, which we need to leave all of those conventions, because as soon as they claim asylum, they cannot be treated as a criminal. Simple as that. Once they're on shore, that's it. They're not being deported because they won't give their identity. And we need to leave all of those conventions, bring in tough prison sentences, and that's the only way, in my opinion, the only civilised way to deal with it. So yeah, that's about it really. That's like some of the policies we're thinking about, and so yeah. So the reason Boris Johnson keeps saying amnesty and some politics, because they know they cannot deport these people. There's too many of them, and they know if they don't give their real identity, where are you going to deport someone if you don't know where they're from? And the country has to have a record of that person. You're not going to accept someone if you don't know who they are. And they know that, these people here, and there's so many of them, it's a massive problem. And I think our suggestion, which me and John have discussed in depth, I think is quite a good suggestion personally. So I'm going to finish off on one last thing. A lot of people might not know about Julian Assange, right? A lot of people seem to think he is a hero, and the truth of the matter is that Julian Assange is a far left, anti-white, very bad person, because Julian Assange only wants freedom for far left people. He doesn't want freedom for the indigenous people of the UK. Some people will know that his WikiLeaks published on the internet a membership leak of the BNP. Forgot to mention that earlier. That was another big thing what happened, which prevented people joining because they were so worried about their details being leaked. And this leak, what Julian Assange did, in my opinion, he deliberately did it so Antifa would then go and intimidate, attack, and threaten people. There's people in this room I know who was targeted from that leak, and it's absolutely disgusting that someone like him is put up as a hero, and he didn't give people their right to be in a perfectly legal political party who didn't have any policies to kill anyone or attack anyone. Civilised and democratic, Julian Assange did not want them to have rights. And as we all know, BNP's been proven right on everything, every controversial issue they campaigned on. So it does wind me up when I see nationalists promoting and saying, oh, you know, he's so great, and you know, now he knows how it feels. Person, that's what I think about it. Now he knows how it feels to be targeted, because that's what he was part of against innocent people, of the BNP membership. So I'm going to leave it there, and yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and John will step up in a minute to give his speech, and that's it. Thank you.